Welcome to the debate. Imagine, if you will, that you are the biggest, most influential rock band of the 21st century.
I think the listeners probably know exactly who we're talking about today.
Well, millions of fans worldwide expect you to deliver these, earth-shattering, screaming guitars and aggressive, heavy riffs, because that is your DNA.
Right. But instead of doing that, you release a track that sounds like it was mathematically engineered for, like a Selena Gomez album.
I mean, today our mission is to unpack what might actually be the most polarizing artistic pivot in modern music history. We are looking at Linkin Park's 2017 track Heavy, featuring Kiara.
The lead single from their 7th studio album, One More Light.
Yeah, exactly. And hello to you listening at home, and a very warm, thoroughly delighted greeting to my esteemed, consistently skeptical colleague across the table.
Oh, the pleasure is entirely mine. Honestly, it is always a treat to watch you try to dress up a glaring commercial compromise in such flowery, pseudo-intellectual wrapping paper.
I wouldn't call it wrapping paper.
But hello to you, the listener. Because once we strip away my co-host's pretentious delusions, we're going to look at reality.
Oh, here we go.
The reality that Heavy has absolutely nothing to do with artistic evolution. What we are actually examining today is a product that reeks of corporate desperation.
I think that is wildly unfair to the creative process.
Is it?
Yeah.
This track has an overwhelming industrial vibe. And no, I don't mean like Nine Inch Nails industrial rock.
I know exactly what you mean.
I mean, it sounds like it was manufactured on a conveyor belt in a laboratory by accountants and marketing executives, not musicians. It was a panicked survival tactic for the streaming era, and quite frankly, it's embarrassing.
Well, I think your cynicism is blinding you to a highly sophisticated, creative process. You say it was made in a lab, but if you look at the genesis of this album, specifically the Nashville writing sessions, it was actually the exact opposite.
Oh, please, the Nashville sessions.
Yes. They threw away the instruments. They completely abandoned their old process of starting with a cool beat or a heavy riff. Instead, they adopted this radical lyrics-first philosophy.
Right, a philosophy of selling out.
No, they didn't just change their sound. They stripped away the heavy metal armor to show the bare, bruised skin underneath.
Bare, bruised skin. Oh, give me a break.
Let me finish. Picture Chester Bennington, Mike Shinoda, and Brad Delson sitting in a circle in a studio in Nashville, just talking.
Sounds thrilling.
They were opening up about their daily frustrations, their deepest vulnerabilities. Mike described the core concept of the song as a when it rains, it pours mentality.
Which is such an original thought.
It's the idea that tiny, insignificant problems pile up until they become this crushing, inescapable weight. It's essentially confessional poetry.
Wait. Confessional poetry.
Yes. When Chester sings about finding comfort in the panic, he's achieving this profound psychological self-awareness. He's realizing that the heaviest problems in his life are the ones he is actively creating for himself.
It's adorable that you find that meaningful, truly.
It is meaningful to millions of people.
You are taking what is fundamentally Hallmark-card lyricism and treating it like it's, I don't know, Sylvia Plath. Let's look past the carefully curated PR illusion of vulnerability and look at who was actually in that room.
The band was in the room.
You conveniently left out the architects of this so-called confessional poetry. They brought in Justin Tranter and Julia Michaels,
Who are incredibly talented songwriters.
who are the literal calculating architects behind Justin Bieber's Sorry and a dozen other sugary pop hits.
Good pop writing is a skill.
You think hiring the pop music hitmakers of the decade to co-write your lead single is a raw exploration of the human's luck? Come on, it's a boardroom strategy.
They were exploring new avenues for expression.
This wasn't a therapy session, it was a focus group. The lyrics are vague, they're repetitive, and completely devoid of the sharp-edged Linkin Park was known for. It's sanitized for your protection.
That's just gatekeeping.
They wanted a song that wouldn't scare soccer moms on top 40 radio. And do you need proof? Do you know the original working title for the instrumental track?
I believe it was Lucky Pups.
Lucky Pups. That tells you everything you need to know. They felt like lucky little puppies finally getting a taste of that sweet, lucrative pop market kibble.
Okay, dismissing a genre entirely just because it aims for accessibility is exactly the kind of elitist gatekeeping that stifles musical growth.
Whoa, I'm the elitist now. Got it.
You're looking at the collaborators and ignoring the actual sonic architecture they built. If we analyze this track musically, it is a brilliantly designed, minimalist masterpiece.
I wouldn't use the word masterpiece.
Well, I would. The song is written in the key of F-sharp minor, which naturally carries this somber, unresolved tension. and it's set to a sluggish tempo of exactly 75 beats per minute.
Yes, 75 BPM, also known as the exact tempo of every trendy mid-tempo tropical pop song on the radio in 2017. What an amazing coincidence.
It's not a coincidence, but it's also not a cash grab. Think about how you feel when you are genuinely depressed.
I feel depressed listening to this song, I'll tell you that.
You feel slow. Every movement takes immense effort. The genius of setting the tempo to 75 BPM is that it physically matches the lethargic, dragging heartbeat of someone going through a depressive episode.
That is quite the reach.
It's an auditory representation of depression's dragging weight. And we have to give credit to Mike Shinoda and Brad Delson's production here. They didn't just push buttons.
I basically did.
No, they used Ableton Live to literally stretch, pitch shift, and warp loops in real time. They swapped out the aggressive, distorted guitars for these murky, ambient textures.
Murky is the right word.
Then they used Pro Tools to bring Chester's vocal right to the front, completely unhidden. That is the definition of less is more.
Minimalist masterpiece. What you are glorifying is peak cringe masquerading as evolution.
That's just a soundbite. It doesn't mean anything.
It means it's not less is more, it's just less. Period. The ambient textures you're praising aren't pushing boundaries, they are auditory wallpaper.
They set a mood?
They are flat, lifeless, synthesized sounds designed to play quietly in the background of a trendy coffee shop while you buy a $12 latte.
I think you're completely missing the nuanced engineering.
Am I? And don't try to sell me on Shinoda and Delson producing this as some indie homegrown effort. Who did they hire to mix it?
They hired Serbingania,
Exactly. Serbingania.
an industry legend who ensures absolute clarity on the track.
An industry legend who is literally the most sought-after pop mixing engineer on the planet. The man who mixes Taylor Swift and Katy Perry.
And his work is impeccable.
And who did they bring in for vocal production? Emily Wright, another pop industry heavyweight.
Because they wanted a specific vocal texture?
When a rock band hires the exact same sonic engineers as Katy Perry, that isn't a musical experiment. That is creative bankruptcy. They bought a sound off the shelf.
They were evolving beyond their 2001 sound.
And let's talk about Rob Burton's drums. Linkin Park had one of the tightest, most dynamic drummers in rock. And what does he do on heavy?
He showed incredible restraint.
He plays a programmed, trap-influenced hi-hat rhythm. Trap hi-hats. It was a desperate attempt to sound hip to teenagers.
It was a modern rhythm choice.
Listening to those skittering, quantized trap beats underneath Chester Bennington, I didn't realize we were reviewing a car commercial today.
A car commercial. That is a remarkably narrow-minded way to view aesthetic experimentation.
It's the only honest way to view it.
If using trap-influenced percussion is expanding their rhythmic boundaries, then bringing Kiara onto the track was the masterstroke. They completely elevated the song's emotional resonance.
Oh, here we go, the masterstroke.
It was. Think about the context. This was a last-minute decision. They recorded her vocals in a grueling marathon, 7-hour session in December, just days before they had to wrap the entire album.
So they rushed it.
No, they captured lightning in a bottle. Having a female voice respond to Chester is vital to the song's core message. It proves that suffering, that mental anguish, isn't an isolated individual experience. It's a shared human condition. Kiara brought this incredibly soulful, slightly breathy, and sexier style to the track. It acts as the perfect, delicate counterbalance to Chester's raw, belting agony. The contrast is gorgeous.
Gorgeous, right.
And the music video, directed by Tim Mattia, perfectly visualizes this. We see Chester physically fighting a clone of himself in a bathroom.
Oh, please don't remind me of the video.
It's a visceral, brilliant metaphor for the lyric "I don't like my mind" right now.
It is genuinely exhausting listening to you invent artistic depth where literally none exists. Kiara wasn't brought in to prove suffering is a shared human condition.
Then why was she there?
Her inclusion was a desperate thirst trap for the Billboard charts.
That is incredibly unfair to her talent. She delivered a great vocal.
It's the truth about the modern music business. In 2017, having a trendy, Spotify-friendly pop vocalist on your track was an algorithmic cheat code to get placed on massive pop playlists.
It's called reaching a wider audience.
And let's look at your destined collaboration. Did you forget the fact that they originally begged Julia Michaels to sing that part?
She co-wrote it. It made perfect sense to ask her to sing on it.
And she rejected it. She said no. Kiara was literally plan B.
Sometimes plan B is the better option.
She was suggested by Zane Lowe, a radio DJ, during an interview. This wasn't some preordained artistic vision of duality. It was a happy accident they backward rationalized into a profound statement.
It doesn't matter how she got there, the final product is stunning.
And as for the music video, fighting a clone in a bathroom. Are we 12 years old?
It's symbolic of internal conflict.
That is the most cliché, overused trope in the history of student films. It is corporate-approved angst.
It was directed by a highly respected music video director.
It's edgy enough to look dramatic, but clean enough not to upset the advertisers. The record label spent a fortune on high-end cinematography, and the result has the emotional depth of a damp napkin.
You know, you can throw all the insults you want, but you cannot argue with the metrics, nor can you argue with the cultural legacy this song ultimately achieved.
Oh, here come the chart numbers.
Yes, the numbers. Because despite the initial shock from rock purists like yourself, the world embraced it. Heavy debuted on the Billboard Hot 100.
Because of course it did.
It hit #2 on the Hot Rock and Alternative Songs chart. It reached top tiers globally. #2 in Malaysia, #8 in Switzerland.
Pop songs tend to chart well, yes.
It achieved 2 times platinum status in the United States, meaning it moved over 2 million units. But beyond the math, beyond the pop chart success, we have to talk about what happened after 2017.
We do. And it's a heavy pivot.
It is. Following the tragic loss of Chester Bennington, the entire context of this song shifted permanently.
It certainly changed how people heard it.
The criticisms that it was too pop or too polished completely evaporated. The lyrics weren't focus group platitudes, they were a literal cry for help.
Yeah.
Heavy transformed into a universally embraced anthem for mental health survival. Think about the bridge. If I just let go, I'd be set free.
I know the lines.
For millions of listeners struggling with their own darkness, those perfectly polished pop vocals suddenly took on a devastating, profound resonance. The slick production didn't matter anymore. The song became a lifeline.
I want to be very clear here because I have nothing but the utmost respect for the tragic real-world context. And I fully acknowledge how deeply this song resonated with people who were grieving.
I'm glad you can at least admit that.
I am not diminishing anyone's personal connection to the lyrics in the wake of that loss. But as a piece of music criticism, we cannot allow retroactive tragedy to excuse the absolute musical betrayal that occurred in that studio. Empathy does not rewrite history.
Calling it a betrayal is just stubbornly holding on to a genre label.
No, it's holding on to artistic integrity. Look at the brutal critical reception when it actually dropped. The critics smelled the pandering immediately.
Critics are notoriously resistant to change.
The Singles Jink Box gave it a miserable 3.5 out of 10. They literally compared Linkin Park to a discount chain smokers.
Which was incredibly harsh.
Mike Shinoda had to go on a press tour to defend it, claiming they weren't chasing pop trends, which was blatantly false given the roster of pop producers they hired.
They were just experimenting.
And you want to talk about how fans reacted. The fan revolt was so intense that an Indian metal band named Bloodywood had to literally remake Heavy from scratch.
Oh, come on. A cover band on YouTube doesn't invalidate the original artist's creative choices.
It wasn't just a cover, it was an indictment. Bloodywood remade it in the aggressive nu metal style of Hybrid Theory. They added the distorted drop-tuned guitars, the guttural screams, the kinetic acoustic drums.
Basically just playing into nostalgia.
And you know what happened? Millions of fans flocked to that version. They needed it, because that cover exposed the truth.
The truth.
Right. The truth is that Heavy actually had the bones of a decent Linkin Park song, but the band deliberately, surgically removed their own soul just to appease the Spotify algorithm. That cover showed the world what the song should have sounded like without the pop pandering.
Okay, let's unpack this and bring it all together for you listening at home. We have explored the absolute extremes of this track today.
We certainly have.
On one side, we have the perspective that Heavy is a brave, deeply vulnerable exploration of the human psyche. A song that stripped away the safety net of heavy guitars to deliver a minimalist, emotionally raw message about mental health.
And on the other side?
On the other side, as my colleague so passionately argues, it is viewed as a sterile, manufactured pop product, stripped of its rock soul in a desperate bid for streaming numbers.
I honestly couldn't have summarized my utter disdain for it better myself.
But I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Oh, boy.
Let's say my colleague is 100% right. Let's say a piece of art is mathematically engineered by pop accountants. Let's say it was written in a boardroom, sanitized for mass consumption, and explicitly designed to be a highly profitable commercial product.
Because it was.
But if that exact same synthetic product ultimately ends up genuinely helping millions of people survive their darkest, most desperate psychological moments, does its corporate origin even matter anymore?
Are you serious?
If the medicine works, do we care that it was made in a factory? Something for you to explore on your own? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Sawasdee and goodbye.
Wow. Oh, what a beautifully manipulative little paradox to end on, trying to make capitalism sound like a humanitarian effort.
This is just a question.
But please, don't let those poetic hypotheticals blur your vision. A sellout is a sellout, no matter how many people buy the record. So I genuinely hope you all enjoy listening to your deeply emotional car commercial on repeat. Sawasdee and goodbye.